Welcome to Into the Words, a podcast from the Highlights Foundation Retreat Center. Today in the cabin are our dear friends Leslie Helakoski and Darcy Pattison. Welcome, Darcy and Leslie.
Thanks. Hi. Great to be here.
So we're so glad to have you here this week. You're teaching picture books and all that jazz. Tell me a little bit about this workshop.
PB&J is for anyone who wants to write a picture book. It's the quintessential book for children, but it has a very specific structure that you have to fit into. It's always 32 pages, almost always. And so we talk about the characters, the plot, the setting, everything you need to know to make your story shine.
Well, and it's not just for people who don't know much about writing a book. It's also for people who have been writing for a while.
Absolutely.
And want to dig deeper and to figure out why things aren't working and what things are working and making their stories really sing.
Yeah, it's a way to take your career in picture books to the next level, starting from wherever you are.
Awesome. And I think it's 3 days.
Yes.
Right,
We
Saturday,
start
Sunday,
Thursday night.
Finish Sunday afternoon. Yeah.
And you were just mentioning at lunch, it's so jam-packed that you'll have to offer a special lecture via video after the fact.
Yeah, I think we're going to do a bonus lecture by video because there's so many things we want to talk about and there's not enough time.
And how long have you been teaching this workshop?
We were talking about this yesterday. We're not sure if it's 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
But it's at least 5.
I think it's 6.
Oh, fantastic. I'll look that up.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit then, maybe Darcy, if you'll start, give me an example of one of the lectures you'll be giving or one of the talks you'll be giving.
So one of the exercises we do is to dummy your picture book. And what that means is you take 32 pages and staple them together so it looks like you have a book. And then you cut your typed manuscript apart and tape it into there. And this is really crucial because a picture book is a physical object. And unless you understand that physical object and how it affects the story, how the page turns affect the story, how much text can be on one page, how to spread out the text and how to pace the story in those 32 pages, unless you understand that, you're not going to write a great picture book. So just the process of doing that is a revelation. It was a revelation for me. The first time I did it, I went, oh, now I start to get it. And when students do this process, it changes so much about their understanding of the picture book.
Great. And Leslie, tell us something. What's one of the things you'll be teaching?
One of the things that I really like to talk about is word choice. I think words are so interesting, and I always have. So sometimes when you're writing, you'll realize that one word is working much better than another, and they mean the exact same thing, but they sound better, they fit into it better, and so there are a lot of things to look at when you're choosing a word beyond just definition. It can help set mood and character and tell you something. So I'm encourage writers to be specific about their word choice. It can add to character development. Let me think of like for example, your character might say hello to someone, or she might say toodaloo to someone, and it totally is different. It feels different. It says something about your character. It goes beyond just a greeting. So we talk a lot about that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's so crucial because picture books are under 500 words. Successful ones are. Under 300 is even better if you can do it and get the full story in there. And so every single word matters.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. So, Leslie, tell me a little bit about you and your writing.
Well, I'm a picture book writer. Through and through, I think that's my main focus. And I like fiction. I tend to stick to fiction, although I have written some nonfiction. Picture books are my main thing, and I have 11 picture books out right now. I have another one coming out in January, a couple with my agent that I'm anxious to get out into the world. But I'm working on a novel.
Oh, fun.
Like
and how is that coming for you?
I actually haven't worked on it since last summer, so I'm anxious to work on it again this summer when I get a little time. But
It's a different beast.
it's a different beast, but it's a chapter book. It's a mid-grade. But other than, I mean, writing is my main thing. I teach here at Highlights. I teach at in workshops across the country. I've been a regional advisor for SCBWI in Michigan for 11 years. And I do a lot of work for that organization as well. And I'm an illustrator, so I paint also. Right now I'm doing a work for hire project for community schools in Kalamazoo, Michigan. But half the time I'm doing my works, I'm illustrating my work, or just painting for fun.
One of the things I like to ask about is a writing practice. And I wonder, do you have such a thing as a daily writing practice or a regular practice?
I do. I do. I don't think of it that way, but I think I do. I write every day, and usually as soon as when my kids were in school, as soon as everybody left the house, I would sit down and write. And I still like to write in the morning, but I'll write anytime. Now, the more time I have, the more I write. So I do. I write, but I do write every day. And if I don't write, I'm antsy. I'm itchy to look at something and write and fool around with it. So it's satisfying in some sort of way to get something down.
Absolutely. Darcy, tell me a little bit about you and your writing and your business.
Well, so I've been traditionally published with books with Harcourt, HarperCollins, places like that. But I also teach for Highlights the Into Your Self-Publishing course. So I have my own publishing company, Mims House, and with that company I publish picture books, chapter books, and middle grade novels. And I'm doing really well with the nonfiction picture books. My newest book that came out last month in May of 2019 is called Pollen, Darwin's 130-Year Prediction. So it's a story about Darwin predicting how a flower was pollinated. And just got a starred review from Kirkus and a really nice PW review. So doing really well with that. And that series is called Moments in Science, and there's 4 of those books. And I just sold rights to that series to a Chinese publisher. So I'm very excited about that.
And this is all on your own through your self-publishing and the publishing house, Mims House, that you've built?
Yes, it's through Mims House.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Very excited about that. So.
And as well, you teach online classes?
I do some online classes. There's a link on my Mims House website to get there. And mainly right now it's a picture book class. So very different from what Leslie and I do together. When we're together, it's a hybrid of what she would do alone and what I would do alone. It's PB&J.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. It's very different. So, you could take that class and the online class and you're not going to get the same information. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. And how about your writing practice? Do you have a writing practice?
I think more, mine is that I read every day. I think you have to put things in order for something to come out. And I can't tell you how many books I read a year. I can't even begin to count, because I will read, 5 or 6 picture books in a day and I forget to count those, But I read all the time because I think that's the flip side of the writing. If you don't have something coming in, then you don't have words to go out.
And reading currently published things is important.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
we all have our old favorites, but reading.
Yeah, a couple times a year I go to Barnes & Noble and just sit there and read books. Or go to the library and sit and read these, or go to a conference and read my friends' books.
Yeah.
Well, wow, that plays right into our last question of, is there a book that you've read recently that stands out as one you remember, or one that you're thinking that's on your shelf that you're looking forward to reading?
I've been reading over and over Your Alien by Tammy Sauer.
Okay.
I saw her present at a conference about this, and it's a wonderful book about a boy who sees an alien coming down from space, makes friends with them, and then the alien goes back to his family, and the boy turns around and his family is there to give him a hug. Wonderful. But what's fascinating as a writer, and that's the thing, is you have to read as a writer. What's fascinating is Tammy Sauer at a conference was talking about it, and she said, this story is second person, future tense, circular structure. And I went, what? What did you do? And I am totally fascinated by her play with all of the things that go into a picture book and how you can use that as a starting place to generate ideas. And just this week, I wrote a second person future tense circular story. And I'm so thrilled. It's totally different than Tammy's, but I'm not quite ready to share it with people, but I'm very excited by it.
Well, it's fun as a writer to push yourself to try different avenues into the story.
Yeah. So I love Your Alien by Tammy Sauer.
Well, something I've read recently that I really enjoyed was a book called Stegosaurus, and I don't know the author's name offhand. I wasn't planning ahead for this, George.
That's fine.
But it's Darwin. It's a great story about these three little dinosaurs, and one of them says it's hot, and the second one says it's hot, and the third one says I find it exceedingly warm outside. It's you know,
the wordplay.
yes, and so he's the Stegosaurus, and he is very wordy and gives multiple definitions for whatever they're saying. I mean, it's just so brilliant. I thought it's funny, it's smart, it has a lot of levels to it. I thought it was really a brilliant picture book.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you, Darcy and Leslie, for joining us on Into the Words here at the Highlights Foundation Retreat Center. We are dedicated to continuing our 35-year history of providing the space, the conversations, and the nurturing that goes into making great stories for children. Thank you for everything you do to support the Highlights Foundation, but more importantly, thank you for everything you do to support that belief that children are the world's most important people.
Thanks.
Absolutely.